The message came at 4:12 p.m., just as I was sprinkling paprika over the deviled eggs. "Mom, don't worry about dinner tonight. Something came up, we'll reschedule." It was from my son, Daniel. I stood in my kitchen, still wearing the blue cardigan he bought me 3 Christmases ago, the one he said made my eyes look brighter. I read the message twice, then a third time. Something came up. I looked at the table I had already half set. I always set my own table before going to his house. It's a habit from years of hosting Sunday dinners. A silly ritual, maybe. Fork on the left, knife on the right, even when I wasn't cooking. I typed back, "That's okay, sweetheart, everything all right." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. "Yeah, just busy, love you." Busy. I told myself not to read into it. He had 2 kids, a demanding job, a wife who worked long hospital shifts. Life was complicated, I understood that. I had raised him alone after his father died. I knew what busy felt like. Still, I had already made the lemon cake his daughter, Sophie, loved. She was 8 and had declared last month that Grandma makes the best cake in the world. I had smiled all week thinking about that. I wrapped the cake carefully in foil anyway. I told myself I would drop it off tomorrow. But as the evening stretched out, the house felt unbearably quiet. At 6:30 I poured myself tea. At 6:45 I found myself staring at the clock. At 7:00 I did something I hadn't planned to do. I picked up the cake. Daniel's house was only 15 minutes away, close enough that I used to drive there without thinking, close enough that I had once had a key. I told myself I wouldn't stay. I would just leave the cake on the porch with a little note, "For Sophie." That was all. When I pulled onto their street, I noticed something immediately. Cars lined the curb. Not just Daniel's SUV and Laura's sedan. There was Laura's sister's car, and a truck that belonged to Daniel's friend Marcus. The porch lights glowed warmly, and through the front windows I saw movement, shadows crossing, laughter. Laughter. My hands tightened around the steering wheel. Maybe it was something last minute. Maybe they didn't want to overwhelm me. Maybe. The front door opened just as I stepped out of my car. And there they were. Daniel stood in the hallway, holding a serving dish. Laura followed behind him, carrying a salad bowl. I could see the dining table from where I stood on the walkway. It was set for 8. Candles flickered in the center, plates were full, glasses half empty. They were eating. Without me. For a moment, I thought about turning around, getting back into my car, pretending I had never come. But Sophie spotted me first. "Grandma," she shouted, her voice bursting through the evening air. Every head turned. Daniel froze. The serving dish in his hands tilted slightly. His face went pale in a way I had never seen before, not when he broke his arm at 10, not when he stood at his father's funeral at 21. "Mom," he said. I forced a smile. "I was just dropping off cake," I said, lifting the foil-wrapped plate slightly as proof. No one spoke. Laura stepped forward first. "Oh, you came." I almost laughed at the absurdity of that sentence. Yes, I came, to the dinner that had supposedly been cancelled. "I didn't want Sophie to miss her favorite," I replied softly. Sophie ran down the steps and hugged me around the waist. "Are you staying? We're having Uncle Mark's promotion party." Promotion party. I looked up at Daniel. Something came up. That's what he had said. Something came up, and that something had been a celebration. "Mom, we were going to tell you," he began quickly. "It was last minute. Laura's sister organized it. We didn't think." "You didn't think I'd want to come?" I asked gently. The air shifted, the laughter inside had quieted. Marcus stood awkwardly near the doorway, pretending to scroll on his phone. Laura's sister stared at the hydrangeas. Daniel stepped closer. "It's just, sometimes it's easier." Easier. That word landed harder than the lie. Easier without me. "I don't take up much space," I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded. "I sit, I eat, I ask the children about school, I bring cake." "Mom, that's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean?" He ran a hand through his hair, a nervous habit from childhood. You ask questions, about money, about work, about plans, it turns into a thing. A thing? I thought of the last dinner, when I had asked if they were saving enough for the children's college. When I had gently suggested that refinancing during uncertain times might be risky, I hadn't meant to criticize, I had meant to help. I raised you through uncertainty, I said quietly. Forgive me for worrying. Laura crossed her arms. It's not about worrying, it's about boundaries. Boundaries? Another new word, a modern word, one that seemed to build invisible walls between people who once shared everything. Sophie looked up at us, confused. Grandma, are you mad? I crouched down to her level. No, sweetheart, grown-ups are just talking. Daniel's shoulders sagged. We didn't want it to turn into a lecture tonight. It was supposed to be light. So you cancelled me, I said. The words hung there. Cancelled? Like an appointment, like a subscription, like something optional. There was a long silence. Finally, Daniel stepped off the porch and stood in front of me. It wasn't about not wanting you. It was about wanting one night without tension. Tension, I repeated. He nodded, eyes pleading now. Every time you come over, I feel like I'm being evaluated, like I'm still 16 and you're checking my homework. The comment strung more than the lie. I'm proud of you, I whispered. I know, he said quickly. I know you are, but sometimes it doesn't feel like it. We stood there, mother and son, the cake between us like a fragile offering. Inside, someone awkwardly cleared their throat. A fork clinked against a plate. I could have argued. I could have reminded him of the nights I stayed up sewing his Halloween costumes by hand, the mornings I skipped breakfast so he could have seconds, the years I swallowed my own loneliness so he wouldn't feel fatherless. Instead, I looked at the table behind him. Full, warm, occupied. You should get back to your guests, I said softly. Mom, it's all right. It wasn't, not entirely, but I understood something now that I hadn't before. Love changes shape. Sometimes it grows louder and crowded, sometimes it grows quiet and distant, and sometimes, if you're not careful, it grows defensive. I handed him the cake. For Sophie, I said, and for Uncle Mark's promotion. He took it slowly. You could still join us. I looked at the faces behind him, polite, curious, slightly uncomfortable. I imagined sitting at that table, feeling like an unexpected add-on. No, I said gently, tonight is yours. Sophie hugged me again before I left. Next time you come, can we bake together? Yes, I promised. As I drove home, the sting in my chest softened into something else. Not forgiveness exactly, not yet. Understanding. Children grow up, they build lives that don't always fit the people who built them. But that doesn't mean you stop showing up. The next morning, Daniel called. I'm sorry, he said. I know, I replied. And this time when he invited me for Sunday dinner, no cancellations, I asked only one question. What can I bring?